Zuwena was not just beautiful, she was unforgettable. Her skin glowed like morning sunlight, her voice was as soft as river water, and her presence made even the elders pause. In the village of Zala, people said she was a blessing from the gods, a gift too rare for this world. Suitors came from near and far, kings and princes, warriors and traders, all seeking her hand. But Zuwena refused them all, her eyes always searching for something else, something deeper. Then came Naoki, a warrior from the kingdom of Kasimba. He wasn't like the others. He didn't boast of riches or power. He spoke with gentleness, and his smile calmed her restless heart. Their meeting felt like fate had finally opened its arms to her. Love grew fast between them, wild and beautiful. The villagers celebrated their union with songs and dances. Everyone was happy. Everyone except one. Maduka, Naoki's mother, had watched their love with a tight jaw and narrowed eyes. She saw something no one else saw. She heard the whispers in the dark, the stories passed down by old women with wrinkled faces and knowing glances. And then she heard it for herself, at night, from Zuwena's chambers. Zuwena cried in her sleep, not once, not twice, but every single night. Tears rolled down her face, and she mumbled the same chilling words over and over like a broken spell. The river must take what I bear, or all shall burn. Maduka's blood ran cold. What did she mean by that? What was she hiding? To the world, Zuwena was perfect, but to Maduka, she was danger disguised in beauty, the kind of woman who would bring sorrow, not joy, a woman touched by something unnatural. And so, deep in her heart, Maduka began to believe. This was no ordinary bride. Zuwena was cursed, and that curse, if left unchecked, could destroy everything. But Naoki couldn't see it. He was blind with love, holding Zuwena's hand tighter each day, dreaming of a family, a future, a life full of peace. He ignored his mother's warnings, believing love would conquer all. He didn't know that the real storm hadn't even begun. And Zuwena, she smiled in the daylight, but inside, her heart beat with fear. She knew what was coming. She knew what she carried, and she knew the price that would be paid, because she had seen it before, in a vision so clear, it still made her shiver. The river would take her child, or fire would take them all. Maduka had always been a woman of wisdom, feared and respected in Kasimba, not just as a mother, but as a spiritual seer. Her connection to the spirits was deep, her dreams often revealing truths others couldn't see. When her son Naoki brought Zuwena home as his bride, Maduka's heart grew heavy. The whispers Zuwena made in her sleep haunted her ears like poison in the wind. She needed answers, so she went where few dared to go, Mount Phio, home to the ancient oracle. The journey was long and treacherous. Twisted trees, thick fog, and the cries of unseen creatures surrounded her path. But Maduka pressed on. When she finally reached the cave of the oracle, the air turned cold. The oracle, a figure draped in black veils, did not speak at first. Only when Maduka laid her hand on the sacred stone did the voice echo from the shadows. The child of Zuwena will bring ruin to the house of Kasimba. Blood will flow, and fire will rise unless the water reclaims its own. Maduka froze. The words cut through her soul like a blade. Her hands trembled. She had feared something was wrong, but this was worse than she imagined. A child not yet born, destined to destroy them all unless thrown into the river. It wasn't just about Zuwena anymore. It was about saving her people. She rushed back to the palace and found Naoki, his arms wrapped around his glowing bride. She pulled him aside, her voice low and urgent. "If you value this kingdom," she warned, "do not let that woman give birth. Her child is cursed. The spirits have spoken. But love is a powerful blinder." Naoki refused to listen. He looked into Zuwena's eyes and saw peace, not pain. He held her growing belly and felt life, not danger. "I love her," he said, "and I will love our child no matter what." Maduka's heart broke that day, not because her son defied her, but because she saw the storm approaching and couldn't stop it. She had warned him. She had done everything a mother could, and now all she could do was wait and pray that the prophecy would prove false. But deep down, Maduka knew prophecies do not lie, and something dark was already stirring. As the months rolled by, Zuwena's belly grew round with new life, but the joy that usually came with expecting a child was nowhere to be found. The palace halls that once echoed with laughter and love now carried a heavy silence. Each day, the air grew colder, thicker with fear. Maduka's warning clung to the walls like smoke. Servants whispered, elders watched from a distance. And Naoki, he stood trapped, his heart pulled in two directions. He loved Zuwena. That had never changed. But his mother's words kept circling in his head, like vultures over a battlefield. What if the prophecy was real? What if their child truly would bring fire and blood? He wanted to believe love could protect them, but even he could feel the darkness creeping in. Zuwena, once full of light, now moved like a ghost. Her eyes no longer danced. They stared far away, always fixed on something no one else could see. She barely spoke. She barely slept. It was as if something inside her already knew what was coming. And one night, when the moon turned red and the sky burned like fire, she finally spoke her deepest fear. She held Naoki's hand tightly, her voice trembling like leaves in the wind. "If the baby is born under the blood moon," she said, "don't look at it, don't touch it. Let me go to the river alone." Naoki stared at her, shocked and afraid. "Why, Zuwena? What are you saying? What river?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Please," she whispered, "you don't need to understand. Just promise me. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you must let me go alone." His heart pounded. Every part of him wanted to fight it, to pull her close and tell her everything would be fine. But something in her voice, something ancient, something sorrowful, made him stop. "I promise," he said softly, even though fear twisted in his gut. That night, he held her close as the blood moon rose high above the kingdom, casting everything in a red, eerie glow. And though he couldn't sleep, he didn't say a word. He just waited and worried and wondered if this love, as deep and real as it was, would be strong enough to survive the shadows that were now closing in. The night the blood moon rose, the wind over Ndala howled like a warning. Red light flooded the land, painting the trees, the river, and even the clouds in shades of crimson. The village held its breath, sensing something unnatural in the air. At the same time, deep in the palace, Zuwena clutched her belly in agony, but instead of calling for help or seeking the warmth of home, she slipped away in silence, like a shadow fleeing from the dawn. She walked through the darkened paths, past the sleeping guards, past the sacred trees, until she reached the bridge of Weko. It stood tall above the raging river that split the kingdom in two, wild, deep, and dangerous. It was there, under the eerie glow of the blood moon, that her screams broke the silence of the night. The pain was sharp, unforgiving, and raw. Yet Zuwena did not cry for help. She pressed her back against the cold stone railings and gave birth right there, alone, as the river roared beneath her like an angry beast. When the baby finally came, her cries were soft, almost musical. Zuwena, drenched in sweat and tears, looked into her daughter's face and froze. The child was beautiful, but on her chest was a mark. It was not a bruise or a birthmark. It was shaped like the river's curve, dark and pulsing, as if the river had claimed her as its own. Zuwena's hands shook, her breathing quickened. Memories of the whispers in her sleep came rushing back, loud and screaming now. "The river must take what I bear, or all shall burn." She cradled the baby to her chest, sobbing, "I'm sorry. I must obey. I must protect you from them, from the fire, from the curse." And then, with a cry that broke the night, she stood, holding the newborn over the edge of the bridge. The stars above seemed to blink. The moon watched in silence. "I love you. Forgive me." Before anyone could see, before the wind could carry her pain to another soul, she let go. The baby slipped from her fingers and fell into the darkness, into the hungry arms of the river below. Zuwena collapsed to her knees, screaming into the night, her cries swallowed by the roar of the water. In that moment, something shattered, not just in her, but in the air, in the stars, in the fate of an entire kingdom. And though no one saw the act, the river remembered. It always remembers. The villagers of Ndala were stirred from their sleep by a piercing scream that cut through the night like a blade. It came from the direction of the bridge of Weko. Men, women, even children grabbed lanterns and hurried toward the sound, their hearts pounding with dread. When they arrived, the river below was still roaring, wild and foaming from the earlier storm. But there was no baby, no cradle, no sign of life except for Zuwena, soaked from head to toe, collapsed at the edge of the bridge, her arms empty and trembling. She was crying like someone who had lost more than just a child, like someone who had lost her soul. Her hair clung to her face, her eyes wide and vacant. The villagers stood frozen, unsure of what they were witnessing. Some gasped. Others whispered in fear. No one dared go near her. When word reached the palace, Maduka stood by the window and smiled faintly, hiding her satisfaction behind a veil of grief. "The curse is gone," she whispered under her breath, as if sealing a prayer. To her, Zuwena's act was horrifying, but necessary. She believed the prophecy had been fulfilled, that the kingdom was now safe from ruin. But when Naoki arrived and saw the scene, his heart cracked in two. His wife, the woman he had defied tradition for, sat on the cold stone like a ghost, and his daughter, his precious baby, was gone, lost to the river, forever. He dropped to his knees in disbelief. "Where is she, Zuwena? Where's our daughter?" he asked, voice shaking. Zuwena couldn't even speak. She looked at him, eyes swollen with tears, mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. She wanted to explain, to scream that she had done it out of love, out of fear, out of prophecy, but all that came out was a sob. "You were supposed to protect her," Naoki roared, rising to his feet, fists clenched. "You killed my daughter." The crowd around them gasped again, some backing away, others clutching their mouths. It was too much, too cruel. That night, Naoki did what he never thought he'd do. He cast Zuwena out, with a heart full of grief and rage. He told her to leave Endala, to never show her face again. Zuwena didn't protest. She didn't fight. She just stood, silent and broken, and walked away barefoot into the darkness. Some say she disappeared into the mountains, where no one dared follow. Others say she went searching for the baby, hoping the river had spared her. But one thing was certain. Zuwena, once the pride of Endala, was now a cursed woman, banished, blamed, and alone. And the river, deep and secretive, carried away more than a child that night. It carried away a family's future. The moonlight danced softly on the calm waters of the river, no longer angry, no longer roaring. It had been 3 days since the whole village heard the cry of heartbreak on the bridge of Weko, and by now, people believed the baby was gone forever. But in a quiet corner downstream, a fisherman named Garani cast his nets like he did every night. He was an old man, with a heart weathered by loss and hands shaped by the river's rhythm. He had no family left, no children to carry his name, only the fish and the silence of the water to keep him company. That night, something strange happened. As Garani pulled his net from the water, he felt a weight that didn't feel like fish or driftwood. He tugged harder, and what he saw next froze him in place. There, tangled gently in the net, was a baby, alive. Her skin was warm, her tiny chest rising and falling with breath. She didn't cry. She simply looked up at him with eyes so deep and calm, they reminded him of the river itself. Garani stumbled back, nearly falling into the boat. He looked around, expecting to wake from a dream. How could this be? The baby was clean, untouched, as if the river had cradled her all along instead of swallowing her. And then he noticed the mark on her chest, curved like the river's bend, faintly glowing in the moonlight. It sent a shiver down his spine. She wasn't just any child. She was special, maybe even sacred. He wrapped her carefully in his old fishing cloak and held her close. His eyes filled with tears he hadn't shed in years. "Zala," he whispered, choosing the name without even thinking. "You are Zala, the one who has returned." From that moment, something shifted in Garani's heart. The loneliness that had eaten at him for years began to melt. He brought the baby home, fed her with warm goat's milk, rocked her to sleep, and sang old lullabies that had long been forgotten. But Garani made one decision that night that would shape everything that followed. He told no one, not even the village priestess, who often helped raise abandoned children. He kept Zala hidden from the world. "The river gave her to me," he said to himself. "I will not let the world take her back." And so, deep in the quiet woods near the edge of the village, Zala grew in secret, protected by the man who saw her not as a curse, but as a blessing. What Garani didn't know was that the world had not forgotten Zala. The river may have returned her, but fate was far from finished. As the years passed, Zala grew in silence, almost like the river itself, quiet, powerful, and full of mystery. She was different from the other children in the village. While they ran, laughed, and played, Zala spent most of her time by the river, sitting in its cool embrace, listening to its whispers. To everyone else, the sound of rushing water was just that, the sound of water. But to Zala, the river spoke to her, told her stories of the past and the future. She would sit for hours, eyes closed, as if communing with something far beyond her years. At the age of 10, Zala's abilities began to show in ways that could not be ignored. One afternoon, Guarani's goat became sick, weak, barely able to stand, its breath shallow and labored. The villagers feared it was dying, and they urged Guarani to put it down. But Zala, without hesitation, knelt beside the animal. She placed her hands gently on its head and closed her eyes. The air around them seemed to still, as if the world held its breath. Moments later, the goat stood, its strength returning as if by magic. The villagers watched in disbelief as the sickly creature nuzzled Zala, healthy once again. By the time Zala was 12, her strange gifts only grew stronger. One evening, as she sat by the river, her gaze grew distant, her brow furrowed. Guarani watched in silence as she stood up, walked to the village square, and pointed at the sky. "A storm is coming," she said quietly. "In 3 days, it will strike. You must prepare." The villagers laughed, dismissing her words as the ramblings of a child. But sure enough, 3 days later, the sky darkened and a violent storm hit the village. Trees were uprooted, crops destroyed, and the river swelled beyond its banks. The villagers were left in awe, and whispers of the river witch began to spread. They said she could heal the sick, predict the future, and understand the secrets of the river. They feared her power, but Guarani stood firm. He never allowed them to take her, never allowed anyone to harm her. He protected her, kept her safe in the quiet woods, away from the gossip and the growing fear. One evening, as Zala sat by the river, Guarani sat beside her, his weathered face drawn with thought. He spoke in a low voice, as though the weight of the truth was heavy in his heart. "You came from the water, Zala. One day, you'll return, but not as a child." Zala didn't ask questions. She simply nodded, her heart already sensing the truth of his words. She wasn't like other children. She wasn't just a girl raised by a fisherman. She was something more, something tied to the water, tied to something ancient. And the river's call was growing stronger. Zuwena's life had become a shadow of what it once was. Banished from the village and rejected by her own people, she wandered from place to place, a broken woman, lost in her grief. The once beautiful bride of Ndala had become a ghost in the eyes of the villagers, whispers of madness following her wherever she went. She was the woman who had thrown her own child into the river, the one who had lost everything, including her mind. But deep inside, there was a fire still burning, a strength that no one could see. In her pain, Zuwena found her purpose. She sought refuge in the forgotten corners of the world, where the powerful Nyaru priestesses lived, women known for their ancient knowledge and their ability to walk between the realms of life and death. The Nyaru women were feared and respected, for they had the power to heal and to curse, to see the future and the past. Zuwena spent years in secret training, learning their ways, mastering the art of spiritual power. She became wise, her pain transforming into strength. She learned how to speak to the spirits, how to control the elements, how to heal with her hands and words. In time, she became a powerful woman in her own right, a force to be reckoned with. Yet even as she grew stronger, Zuwena's heart was heavy with regret. No matter how much she learned, no matter how powerful she became, there was one thing that haunted her more than anything: the loss of her daughter. She had thrown her child into the river, believing it was the only way to protect her from a curse. But now, years later, Zuwena was consumed by guilt. What had she done? Where was her daughter? Was she alive? Did she survive the river? One night, after years of training and meditating in the deep, quiet woods, Zuwena had a vision. It came to her like a sudden storm, unbidden, but undeniable. In her dream, she saw a girl with eyes like the river, shimmering with the colors of the water. The girl was standing on the bridge of Weko, the very bridge where Zuwena had cast her child into the depths all those years ago. The mark of the river, shaped like the curve of the water, was visible on the girl's chest, glowing softly in the moonlight. The vision whispered to Zuwena, "She will return to Ndala, the bringer of truth. She will heal what you have broken." Zuwena woke up with her heart pounding in her chest. This was no ordinary vision. It was a message, a sign. Her daughter, alive, powerful, and carrying the mark of the water, was coming back. The truth of everything Zuwena had done and everything that had happened was about to unfold. The past was about to collide with the present, and the river would finally reveal its secret. Zuwena knew that her time had come to return to Ndala, to face the truth, and to find the daughter she had lost to the river all those years ago. At the age of 18, Zala returned to Ndala, though she didn't know it was the place of her birth. She had grown into a woman of remarkable abilities, renowned for her healing powers. She was known far and wide as the Daughter of Rivers, a name that captured the essence of her mysterious past and the power that flowed through her veins. Zala was a healer, a woman with an uncanny connection to the water, and her presence was like a breath of fresh air in the villages she visited. Her touch could heal the sick, her voice could calm the storm, and her wisdom reached deeper than the riverbeds themselves. Her fame spread quickly, and soon she was sought after by people from all walks of life. One day, in the bustling market of Ndala, she caught the attention of a young blind boy. With a gentle touch, she healed his sight, bringing tears of joy to his eyes. Word of her miracles spread like wildfire, and even the royalty of Ndala began to take notice. The palace summoned her, hoping she could do something for the suffering people of the land. It wasn't long before Zala, with her gift and her calm presence, warned the king of a coming flood. Her prediction was precise, saving the lives of hundreds of villagers who had no idea of the danger lurking in the distance. But it was one fateful day, when Zala touched the hand of an old woman named Maduka, that everything changed. Maduka, though frail and aged, was struck by something powerful the moment Zala's fingers brushed against hers. The old woman gasped, her face turning pale as she fell to her knees, overwhelmed by a deep, unshakable fear. "The mark," she whispered in disbelief. "No, it can't be." But there it was, the mark of the river, unmistakable and glowing on Zala's chest. Maduka, in her shock, realized the truth. Zala was the child that had been cast into the river so many years ago. In that very moment, another presence entered the room. Zuwena, Zala's mother, had returned to Ndala as well. It wasn't a coincidence. It was fate. The mother and daughter, both scarred by the river and the prophecy, were finally reunited after years of separation. The bond between them was instant, but there was also a deep sense of pain and loss. Zuwena looked at her daughter, her heart aching with guilt, knowing she had done the unthinkable. Naoki, Zuwena's husband, had been watching from a distance, and when he saw his daughter and wife standing together, the weight of years of regret and heartbreak crushed him. He had failed them both. He collapsed, unable to hold back the tears. "I failed you both," he whispered through choked sobs. It was a moment of reckoning for everyone involved. Mother, daughter, and father. The river had brought them together, but it had also torn them apart. Zala's return wasn't just a reunion. It was the beginning of a new chapter in Ndala's history, where the past would be uncovered and the truth would finally be revealed. Zala, standing tall with the wisdom of the rivers flowing through her veins, finally revealed the truth that had haunted her and her mother for years. She spoke of the river's choice, how it hadn't condemned her to death, but had instead chosen her for something greater. The mark on her chest was not a curse. It was a symbol of her destiny. She was never meant to be an omen of doom, but a bringer of healing, a force that would cleanse the land and restore balance to the people of Ndala. The curse that everyone feared was, in fact, the river's way of cleansing the sins of the past. As Zala's words echoed in the palace and across the village, Maduka, the old woman who had once rejoiced in the loss of Zala, fell to her knees in desperation. She begged for forgiveness, her voice shaking with fear. But Zala, with all the power of the river behind her, knew that forgiveness could not erase the weight of the past. The river does not forget, and neither would its reckoning. That very night, as Maduka lay in her chambers, the air grew thick with an unnatural chill. The Irumi River, which had always been calm and steady, began to stir with a dark, powerful energy. The waters swelled and roared, rising higher and higher, as though it had a mind of its own. A massive wave surged through the palace, crashing through Maduka's chambers, sweeping her away in a torrent of water. When the morning sun rose, she was gone, never to be seen again. It was as though the river had claimed her, as it had once claimed Zala, but this time it was for justice, not for salvation. In the wake of Maduka's disappearance, Zuwena found herself restored. She had once been cast out, broken by the cruel fate that had befallen her and her daughter, but now, with the river's blessing, she rose as a priestess of Ndala. She became a spiritual guide for the village, helping others find peace and redemption, just as she had found peace with her daughter. Zala, too, found her place in Ndala. The people, once fearful of the girl who had been thrown into the river, now saw her as a healer, someone who could mend not only their bodies, but also their spirits. She became the village's greatest healer, revered for her wisdom and her ability to connect with the river's power. The villagers, once wary, now looked to her for guidance. She had become more than just a healer. She had become a queen in wisdom. The story of the baby thrown from the bridge became a powerful lesson for all who heard it. The fear that had once led Zuwena to cast her daughter away was transformed into a powerful message for the people of Ndala. What you throw away in fear may return as your salvation. The cruelest act, it seemed, could sometimes hide the deepest love, and those we cast into the waters in despair might rise again, like the tide, to heal us all. And so, the tale of Zala and her mother became a story passed down through generations, a reminder of the power of forgiveness, the lessons of the river, and the truth that even in the darkest moments, love can find a way to return. If you felt the weight of Zala and Zuwena's story, if their journey through pain, redemption, and the power of love touched your heart, then you're not alone. Sometimes, the deepest wounds lead to the most powerful healing. The truth always finds a way, even through the darkest waters. Just like the river, the love we fear to lose can return to us when we least expect it. This story reminds us that the things we fear or cast away in desperation can hold the keys to our salvation. So, let's remember to never lose hope, even when life pushes us to the edge. You never know what blessings might lie beneath the surface, waiting to rise when the time is right. If this tale moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with others who need a reminder of the power of love and redemption. Like this video if you believe in second chances and the strength of a mother's love, and hit that subscribe button to join our growing family of storytellers. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey. Let's keep sharing these heartwarming stories, one lesson at a time,